I've been in practice 20 years. I wanted to become an osteopath when I was 8 years old. You're not going into deep sleep, you're actually missing out on huge chunks of restoration and healing and improvement. Mouth breathing is a stress response. Getting sicker as a population, what is common is not necessarily normal.
This is Catch-Ups in My Kitchen, the catch-up you need every week in order to look, feel and be the best version of yourself. Join me in my kitchen every week as I speak to a new guest about all things food, health and wellness. Whether it's a specialist in their field, an inspiring story, or just a big girly catch-up full of all the recommendations, tips and advice. In my kitchen, we talk about it all. Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Catch-Ups in My Kitchen with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. In my kitchen this week, I am joined by Lucy Rayner, who is an osteopath, but she is so much more than that. And in this episode, we are diving deep on airways, breathing and nutrition. We are talking about the benefits of mouth taping, the benefits of nasal breathing, and how our diet is literally the backbone of our whole well-being. Breath, sleep, and nutrition really are the three pillars of health. And in this episode, we dive deep on all of those. This is so fascinating. Lucy is so passionate. She's so qualified in this area. And so you guys are in for a real treat. Without further ado, let's go and join Lucy in the kitchen. Lucy, welcome to my kitchen. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
We literally just had like a mini episode and we were like, we need to actually start recording because this is all so good. But before we get cracking, do you mind giving a quick elevator pitch? Who you are and what you do?
So my name's Lucy Rayner. I'm an osteopath. And I've been in practice 20 years. So I qualified from the British School of Osteopathy in 2005, and then I started classical osteopathy training, which I'm now doing the advanced version of 15 years later. And I then did the paediatric specialism at the Osteopathic Centre for Children and Molinari Women's Health. And I'm very interested in airway, which is what I specialise in. And all the practical implications of health of the entire family. So from infants all the way up to adults, and then all of the preconceptive and pregnancy and postpartum care. And I work with athletes as well.
Amazing. I mean, this conversation is going to be so great because it's all so linked. Like what we were just touching on. Everything in our body is linked, and everything from all ages is linked. So from before you're even born to later life, everything is linked. So I'm excited about this. But before we do, we have a quick fire round about all things food.
Okay.
Just to start. Okay. So, what is your favourite restaurant in London?
Ooh. I just recently went to Sagadi, and it's in Old Street, and it's a phenomenal, it's a Spanish Basque grill restaurant, and that was phenomenal. They did an amazing margarita, beautiful steak. I basically go around all the different steak restaurants. I love seafood as well, so I need to find a really excellent seafood restaurant too. Okay,
good recommendation.
Sagadi's lovely.
What is one wellness brand or product that you can't live without?
Let me think. So Ape Nutrition springs to mind, because if I don't get organs into my diet like fresh, if I can't have them, then I always have a stash of optimized female beef organs and Celtic oysters. So you have basically everything comes from your food. So they're my favourite.
That is a good. I actually got my godfather on Ape Nutrition because he was like, I really want a good quality protein powder, and I was like, I felt like because I am majority plant-based, so we kind of differ on diet, but I was like to him, I think this is like the best one for non-plant-based.
I've just got some from a friend of mine, the male ones, so I want to see how that works with him. And the other one I would recommend is Victoria Health Fulvic Elixir, which is a mineral supplement, and it's liquid, and that was amazing. It was a game changer for me when I started taking that.
Wow, okay, good. Okay, what is your hangover meal?
Ooh. Don't really get hangovers anymore.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Someone said that if you take the supplement NAC, you don't get hungover.
Yeah, I've also heard that eggs are protective.
Eggs. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really get them.
Amazing. Okay. No hangover for you.
No.
What's your favourite coffee shop?
Ooh. Oh, there's a really nice one. I think it's called Daku. I think it's called Daku. And they do a really lovely cold brewed coffee.
Yeah. Someone said this before. Daku.
Yeah, and it's just on High Street Ken up the road from me.
Nice. That's a good one.
That's really nice.
Which food for you is a no-no?
Gluten. I can't touch it. So any kind of, basically grains full stop.
Yeah.
And pulses, because they have the same, so lectins I react to. I tried to go vegan for a day, and I was sort of consistently having beans, like bean salads and things from the health food shop in Fulham next door to the clinic I was in, and then I went like full on like bean stew. I was in agony. I was like, okay, this is never going to work for me. If I can't eat beans, there's not. Yeah. And pulses, like, that's not my food.
I have a lot of beans in my diet, but too many is too many. Like it is really tough on my digestion. Really tough.
One is too many for me. So I mean, funnily enough, I could have hummus because it was blended, but chickpeas I couldn't touch.
Yeah.
So
I have had I feel you. And what's your favourite dish to cook at home?
Anything kind of easy, really. Everything's kind of like quick and easy. I cook everything in the air fryer, or I actually have an outdoor gas hob, so I can sear steaks like nobody's business. I have beautiful big tomahawk, and you can get beautiful sear on it. Or I do like a lovely stew, like beef cheek, something like that, something slow. And some of my favourite things are kind of like treats, really. Like French chocolate mousse is probably my favourite to make.
Oh my goodness!
Because it's raw egg chocolate, and I try and make it without sugar, but I make it with glycine, so it still tastes sweet. So it's still animal based.
Amazing. We're going to get into the animal based bit in a minute. Okay, to start with, do you mind talking about your journey to kind of where you are, which is a long journey of like. You're like a walking experiment in so many ways. But let's maybe start there from how you got into osteopathy. Is that how you say it? Yeah. Osteopathy. Let's start there.
So I wanted to become an osteopath when I was 8 years old. I'd already taught myself to massage when I was 6. My sister injured my back when we were practicing gymnastics at home. She put all of her weight on me. I think she was trying to hurt me deliberately. We didn't really ever get on. And it snapped a tendon in my spine. I couldn't breathe. I probably got quite a lot of diaphragm damage as well. So that I kind of recall not breathing well prior to that, but breathing has been a big part of, or breathing dysfunction has been a big part of my life. And I saw an osteopath who helped me at the time, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Like I was always, whenever there was a workman around the house, I used to watch them like a hawk. I used to sit next to them and see how they would be fixing something. So I got broken, I got fixed. So that was it was very logical. At that point, I wasn't really interested in becoming an osteopath, but then my grandfather had a stroke, and the physio did all the rehabilitation with him, but didn't use her hands on him, and the rapport wasn't there. And it just lit a fire inside me as I watched the physio with him interacting. And I was like, no, this is it. I'm going to be an osteopath from this day on. At the same time, my grandmother on my father's side had a spiral fracture in her leg and hip from a fall at home, because she obviously had osteoporosis. And we were going in and out of hospitals from my grandfather and my grandmother all the time. And there's no way I could work in a hospital. I couldn't stand the smell. I didn't like the environment. So it was very much, I wanted to be one-to-one with a patient and use my hands and touch and heal my patient and get them better.
Amazing.
And the rapport was the biggest part for me.
And what I'm loving about your kind of story is that, like, through seeing different patients, you're like piecing together other issues. So they may be talking about an issue with their speech, and then you're kind of like linking that to diet, and you're linking that to all these different things. Yeah. And everything is so linked. So from starting your journey wanting to get into osteopathy, you've now kind of got this obsession over all the other areas of health. Yeah. So can we touch on like how everything is so linked, from diet to your speech to everything.
So the body needs to work. So the body's very efficient, and any one thing in the body has a multitude of functions. So, for example, even just walking. Walking is not just about locomotion. Walking is about the calf pump, returning lymph fluid back into the venous system, so that you can then recycle the blood, but also work on your immune system. There's so many functions for each particular part of the body. And then when we're thinking about the body itself, it's all very well documented what the body does, for example. But then when you start looking into airway and feeding function, then you're thinking about the tongue. Well, what does the tongue do? It's the top of the respiratory tree, the top of the gut tube, the conditioner of the face, the lymphatic pump of the head. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so when we're thinking about one problem, it's never just one problem. You could have a toe injury and fracture your toe, then you could be limping, then you're going to jam up your sacroiliac joint, you're going to create asymmetry all the way through the spine. The top of the spine will then need to adjust through the suboccipital muscles. You can then get headaches, jaw issues. I mean, the list, that affects the eye, through the different ganglia of the head and neck. That's going to affect the different, just how your body functions from top down. And everything's reciprocal. So if you have a problem at the top of your skull, for example, you'll have a problem with the pelvis. So any kind of there's a lot of links with pelvic floor issues with tongue issues, for example. And you're taught that when you're delivering and going through birth, in order to relax the pelvic floor, that work on your jaw, sing, relax the muscles of your mouth and face. So why are we kind of neglecting this? We think about airway, breathing, circulation when we have a patient who's unconscious. Why are we not thinking about airway, breathing, circulation day to day and also during sleep? And this is basically where I go into airway. The osteopaths tend to work more in a musculoskeletal setting, and that's what people know about osteopathy. Or back pain, or go and see an osteopath, neck pain, or see an osteopath, posture. That's not really how it started. The whole body is our area, and it's all about how the body functions, and about acute illness and chronic wellness, really. Illness, chronic wellness. And that's what we do as classical osteopaths.
Hey guys, I quickly wanted to interrupt the episode to talk to you about an app that I have recently downloaded. It is called One Zone, and it is a curated discovery app where you can find the top restaurants, bars and cafes in London. Whether you're looking for a girly spot for a good catch-up or a date night vibe, One Zone have it all. You can find the place, book it, and check out the menu all in one place. I have recently been to Canteen in Notting Hill, which I absolutely loved, and I've also discovered the corner shop at 180, which I'm completely obsessed with. Honestly, the app has completely changed my lifestyle here in London, and I know it will change yours too. If you head to the show notes, you can click the link and download the app today. If you do, let me know some of the restaurants you try, as I know you're going to be absolutely obsessed just like me. Now let's get back to the episode. This one simple thing has completely changed my life, and that is mouth taping. I have never been one to prioritize sleep, but in January I started mouth taping and my sleep and my productivity skyrocketed. The deep restorative sleep you get from mouth taping is completely insane. Nasal breathing is the way we should be breathing at night, and mouth taping really, really promotes this. I wanted to bring it to more people, so I started Healthy Habits to bring you a luxurious and aesthetic mouth tape that you can use every day and feel proud to use. If you're intrigued on the benefits or want to give mouth taping a go, this is your sign to do so. Click the link in the show notes and use the code CATCHUPS20 to try mouth tape today. I promise you will never sleep better, and just thank me later. Now let's get back to the episode. I want to touch on airways and sleep because personally, this is something that I've looked into more this year.
Yeah.
And as someone who's never prioritized sleep, if I was busy, my sleep would get less. And I didn't know if I was a mouth breather or a nose breather. I got told about this book called Breathe. I tried to read it. I was like, I breathe, whatever. Like, I didn't really focus on it. Since mouth taping this year, I obviously slept a lot better, and I'm now like, oh wow. And I do honestly think that we can get told things, but when you actually do it in practice and feel the difference, you then are hooked, and you're like, okay, there's more to this, there's proof, there's evidence. I'm now really interested. But I don't feel like people put kind of breathing and sleep kind of together that much. So why is it so important that we breathe properly when we sleep?
Well, the immune system is most active at night. So we need to have basically brain cleansing. So through the lymphatics. So the lymphatics are the lymphatics of the brain. And that's what's happening at night. You're going through restoration and body healing when you sleep. When you breathe properly through your nose, you produce nitric oxide. It dilates blood vessels, so you get more oxygen into your system as well, and you go into deep sleep. You need those patterns of deep sleep for healing and restoration. So if you're not going into deep sleep, you're actually missing out on huge chunks of restoration and healing and improvement. So you're basically waking up in a deficit. It's very much linked to shortening of lifespan. I mean, it's massive. And if we have problems with sleeping, so upper airway resistance syndrome, snoring, which is turbulence, or sleep apnea, that's linked to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, metabolic disorders, strokes. It's very significant long-term brain health, Alzheimer's, dementia.
It's quite scary, really.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're all mouth breathers in terms of, I think our lifestyle is such that we're all breathing through our mouth more than we used to. I mean, I was speaking to someone about like diet and how that's impacting the way that we're breathing now. And I speak to people and I'm like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, you're the mouth tape girl. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I can roll with that. And they're like, what does it actually do? Like, oh, I don't breathe through my mouth. And I'm like, well, how do you know? Like, I didn't think I did, but how do you actually know? I think we do breathe through our mouth. I think we breathe through our mouth more now than we ever have before. But is that linked to our diet, our lifestyle, like pollution? I feel like all these factors are... Yeah, things that...
It's very multifactorial. So nasal breathing, so babies are obligate nasal breathers, so they breathe through their noses. They should not be breathing through their mouths. Mouth breathing is a stress response. If you look at animals in the wild, if you see a crow with their mouth open, they're commonly in a very high stress state. So I'm always looking at nature and seeing what nature does. And you know, if you watch any animal, when they're mouth breathing, they're often in an extremely high stress state. So nasal breathing is our norm. Of course, we have a secondary system that if our nose is blocked for any reason, we will mouth breathe. So you do have another way of breathing, should there be a problem. But there is what is normal, what is optimal, and then what happens at the extreme of that. And we tend to have more, we're getting sicker as a population over time. So what you see is deterioration. What is common is not necessarily normal. And you see this all the time. Everyone's like, oh, everybody's like that. And you're like, yes, but that doesn't mean we're all healthy. You know, how many people do you know who have braces? No, that is extremely common. It's almost a rite of passage now. But that doesn't mean it's normal. You know, why have we got dysfunction through the teeth? What's not happening that we're not growing our faces properly? You know, same thing with wisdom teeth. Same thing with ADHD and the rise of autism. You know, these things are extremely common. That's not necessarily what we're designed for, or how we're meant to be. We're not expressing health in the way that we have done for millennia.
Yeah, it's so true about braces. That is a rite of passage. It's kind of like you hit a certain age and everyone in your year at school will be wearing braces.
That's right.
Why do people snore?
That's turbulence. Right. So you've got a smaller smaller airway passage for potentially a few reasons. And then you're getting turbulence of tissue, which is causing that sound.
Okay.
So we call it sleep disordered breathing, is basically the classification, the term. And within sleep disordered breathing, you've got snoring, which is turbulence, you've got upper airway resistance syndrome, and you've got sleep apnea. So sleep apnea are periods where you're actually not breathing at all, and there's pauses in your sleep, in your breathing, pauses in your breathing. And you'll hear it. You'll hear people all of a sudden waking up, and they can wake up with startle. So their blood oxygen levels, their saturated percentage of oxygen will drop, and basically starving yourself of oxygen for periods of time. So ultimately, there is a brain damage element to that.
Gosh.
Yes, you have to be quite careful with that. So you can have a CPAP, which is continuous positive airway pressure, a mask that you wear at night so that you get constant airflow. Or you can have something called a mandibular advancement device, so an MAD. And that is effectively kind of like an appliance you wear, and it brings the jaw forward so that you're again decompressing the airway and opening up space through the soft tissues. There were a couple of studies that they did, and apnea is related to obesity. So when you have patients who are overweight and obese, the fat infiltration into the tongue. So basically the tongue's size is larger because of the fat, and that will physically compress the airway. But then they did a study with BMI, so body mass index, so basically how your height and weight ratio, and sleep apnea, and they found that the inverse was correct. So they wanted to also prove, the fatter you are, the higher incidence of apnea, and what they found was the opposite. So the skinny women were also getting apnea. And why is that? Because you've got tongue collapse into the airway.
Wow.
Yes. So then you're thinking about tongue restriction, you're thinking about tongue tie.
Yeah.
With the infants, there's a fascinating study. Let me try and remember it. And that's right. So on what's the word? Forgot the word. When autopsy. There you go. Yeah. So on autopsy, they found lip ties with infants were associated with SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
God.
And again, they're looking, so you read into the study and they're talking about the tongue tie that's present causing, again, a compression of the airway. And this is fascinating. So it may well be that the infants who have tongue and lip tie have a greater restriction. I don't know. But even just the fact that there's a connection with an airway problem related to sudden infant death syndrome, I think it's important to look into it for more than just a feeding issue, for example. So this is kind of where I'm very interested in not just infant health. So how can I help my infants when they come to me and the mums are saying, they've got abdominal discomfort. When they feed, they're very gassy. So of course the oral complex isn't optimal. So they're taking air down. They might have reflux and all sorts of other problems, if they have issues with breastfeeding, etc. So I work with a lactation consultant and I work with the laser dentist, or if they're an older child and they've got a sleep problem, we'll work with a myofunctional therapist, nutritionist, and again, release provider, or paediatrician, whoever's needed at the time. And then you've got the adults who have diabetes, metabolic disorder, poor sleep, dental issues, all the way along. This is an important thing to address, and it often goes hand in hand with other issues. As osteopaths, we're looking at posture a lot of the time, and you see your patient with their anterior head posture. Well, the head is forward to open up the airway so they can breathe better. So we can't fix that unless you look at the underlying issue.
Yeah, so it's so fascinating how it's all interlinked. Do you mouth tape every night?
No, I did for a long time. So when I started my palate expansion, I then basically I dove into everything. I'd already changed my diet, and I was already carnivore at that point, so I made sure I had the substrate in my diet for growing bone, because that's what we're doing. So lots of bone broth, lots of meat, lots of collagen, lots of eggs, and all of the vitamins A, D, and K, because I'd obviously I wanted to copy what Weston A. Price had found, and subsequent research from there. So Dr. Stephen Lin also does that, and who's the other one? Dr. Shireen Lim as well. So I was obviously following the different dentists and what their protocols were, and also what the different doctors were saying in terms of metabolic health. So at that point I started mouth taping. And what I found was I had this massive ache across my back, where all of a sudden I was using my diaphragm and actually utilising it properly. And I'd always had an issue there when an osteopath was treating me, because I always had reverse curves, and it didn't matter what I did, that was the area of my original injury as well. And I was able to correct my spinal curves in that area purely from mouth taping and nasal breathing.
Wow,
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
People also say now that they recommend children mouth tape.
Ooh, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, because someone said to me, oh, you should look into creating mouth tape for children.
It's out there already.
Yeah, and I just thought, I'm not going to dip my toe into this because I'm not qualified enough to recommend that. I think when you start doing things for children, there needs to be an element of like qualification there to, I don't know, I just feel like I'm not.
The tape itself, yes, you could produce it, but you need to know how you're using everything.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's very nuanced. All of this is nuanced. There is no one rule for everyone. And so if you have apnea, you absolutely don't want to be taping, because you'll create more apnea episodes at night, because it's a struggle for you to breathe. So there's I just recently went to another conference, and I'm trying to remember his name now. Tip of my tongue. Patrick McCone, phenomenal. So he's an amazing guy, and he practices and teaches all about Buteyko breathing. Buteyko is a Russian development technique practice of breathing designed for asthmatic children, and it's basically breathing techniques and nasal breathing techniques. So you can utilize, you need to be changing and optimizing your breathing function. You could do all sorts of things with your dental and everything else and your diet, and your breathing function could still be pretty rubbish, and you're still not going to then be optimizing. So practicing nasal breathing and deep breathing properly is really key. The challenge is, if you've got apnea, you need to be focusing on the causes of that. Starting with mouth tape during the day is key. Because if you can't mouth tape during the day, forget mouth taping at night.
Yeah, it's so true.
So there's tape you can get. I started off with very, very simple surgical tape. What's it called? It's just micropore tape, so it's terrible. And I would put one strip. I kind of felt a bit weird putting it on, because actually it kind of scared me. I didn't want to see myself in the mirror with tape on.
Yeah.
So I did one piece of tape that was vertical, and what I would do is wake up at night and I would have ripped it off. And I'm like, oh. So then I decided, right, okay, I've got to like fool my sleep self. So I did 2 strips, and I would wake up, rip one off, and then the other piece would stay on. So I would be able to continue with one piece on. So I was still nasal breathing. As time's gone by, I've now got a nice big piece of like, it's practically it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to take off in the morning, but I'm practiced with that. But during the day, I mean, what the tape that you can get for children is square. So it has a hole in the middle, and all it's doing is encouraging the lips to come together. So it's creating that resistance, so you can't open your mouth. But realistically, you need to be practicing during the day with breathing exercises. And there may be lots of reasons why mouth breathing is still a preference. If you've got a blocked nose, if you've got enlarged tonsils, enlarged adenoids, that can limit the airway so much that you have to mouth breathe. So mouth taping would, it's not just about stopping the mouth breathing. You have to figure out why.
But why are we all mouth breathing more now than before? Because obviously we're supposed to be nasal breathing, and our ancestors weren't mouth taping. They probably didn't know what that was necessarily. So they were all naturally nasal breathing. Maybe not everyone, but like majority. That's what we should be doing. And now we're in a world where we're all mouth breathing. How's it got from that to this?
Well, you use it or you lose it. So if you're not breathing through your nose, you're not going to be modelling the airway through the nose. So often you get dry nasal passages. As well, you'll shape the way the face works. So ultimately, you'll become more dominant through the muscles of the mouth. Everything toses, so the jaw stays open. That actually compresses the airway, and that is ultimately the preference. If we've got viruses, if we've got enlarged tonsils or adenoids through inflammation, reactions to foods, etc., that will also limit the nasal pathway. So then again, you'll be breathing through your mouth. Mm-hmm. So when I have a patient and they come in with mouth breathing, and the parent says, they're mouth breathing, what's going on? I will screen through their whole history of how they kind of got here. Were they breastfed? Are there any allergies? Do we have enlarged tonsils or adenoids? And the first thing I will do is send them to an ENT. So I'm not going to be examining them for enlarged tonsils or adenoids. Adenoids I can't see. You have to have a scope to be able to see them. Tonsils I can visibly see them, so they may well be blocking the airway. Then we're thinking about tongue tie. Then we're thinking about habit and basically muscular tone. So if the tongue isn't strong enough to elevate the palate and stay there through a vacuum, it's going to tose, be the floor of the mouth. And so you do need to change that habit as well. So some of it's behavioural, and some of it is down to the immune system too.
People say that if you mouth tape, your jawline changes. Is that true or not?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're affecting how the face functions, you will affect its structure.
Right.
So structure governs function, and structure function are interrelated. So function drives structure drives function. So when you breathe through your nose, you're developing the sinuses in the face, so the air spaces in the face. Without breathing through your nose, you don't develop those. So at age 7, at age 14, the face will be much flatter than if you were nasal breathing. You will develop the face. You will actually expand through the mid-face as well.
God, it's crazy, but I think everyone expects it to change like after a week. I think that everyone's like, I'm going to get a sculpted jawline and mouth tape for a week. And it's like going to the gym and saying, I'm going to get a six-pack after doing some sit-ups. It's like, it doesn't work quite like that.
No.
But that is really interesting. And now on to diet, because you are carnivore. Mm-hmm. And I'm not carnivore, but I always think that the foods we're eating now are softer compared to then, which I think has an impact on jaw and teeth and all of that. Like, we're not chewing, and they say you should chew your food 20 times or something before you swallow. I definitely don't do 20 times, but I'm very aware of like chew, because but a lot of the foods I eat, being heavily plant-based, are soft. But I think so I'm like very wary, but like we don't use our jaws as much as we did. I mean, being heavily carnivore, you'll use yours a lot more than me. Mm-hmm. But how does this impact our health? Let's start with carnivore from a chewing kind of construct perspective, and then go on to the actual health benefits of being carnivore.
So realistically, you need to have nutrient-dense food and texturally dense food, and they go hand in hand. So I had an organic allotment for 4 years.
Heaven.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
I can imagine, actually, yeah.
I've always been obsessed with plants. I love plants. So I did plant biology at school. I studied horticulture. I always wanted to have basically like a farm or a small holding. And because I always wanted to, like, my fantasy dream life would be to, live on a desert island and hunt and fish. And then you have all of the like vegetables, and you just Garden of Eden, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I tried to create. And so I got an allotment. Luckily, within like 1 week, it was amazing. And it was huge. It's the size of a tennis court.
Wow.
Yeah. 10 rods, massive, in where I am in Northeast London. And I was very blessed with that. And I was like, this is going to be a lot of work. So I had already, for a very, very long time, I'd been planning this. So I knew all about heritage seed library, heirloom varieties of plants. And I had meticulously gone through the entire season of what I would plant, what I would grow, the different seed selection, the different varieties. Like I said, I'm obsessed. So this was a big love of mine for a very, very long time. And this was a long time coming. And I started off like year 1, year 2, year 3. And year 3 was COVID. So I had 3 months off, and I did the best preparation I ever had. And the best outcome. So I did crop rotation, I did the no dig method, it was organic. So I had, I used all of the, what's the term now? Basically I used pests as well. So I bought little ladybirds, on mail order, let them loose. So again, nematodes, you name it. So I grew so many amazing plants. And ultimately it didn't make a difference to my health whatsoever. I ate seasonally for years.
No, that's so depressing.
Yes, I know. That's what I thought. I was like, oh, okay, so nothing's really changed.
When you say it made no difference to your health whatsoever, what are you using to define that? Like, what does that mean?
So
how you felt, or tests, or what?
So for me, my parameters of health were my period, which was a big one. So my periods have always been like clockwork. So that's never changed. But my periods were always heavy. I always used to have clots. I used to have mood swings. I'd feel exhausted and fatigued. I'd feel like very anemic, and I'd always check my eyes, and I could feel. My whole body felt heavy. The last thing I want to do would be socialize, and I would have a lot of physical symptoms of just feeling not right is probably the best term for it. If you compare this to something, because you get very used to your dysfunction, so that became normal for me, like a real heaviness in my abdomen, loads of bloating. Whenever I ate, I would be bloated, even if I'd had no gluten, no dairy. And I couldn't lose weight easily. If I cut my calories, it was meaningless, made no difference. If I slightly strayed from my diet, I would gain weight extremely quickly, compared to friends of mine or anything else. And it was kind of just a bit of a miserable existence for a long time. I'd gone through kind of I'd done food combining early on. So that was probably my first fad diet or diet change, or that was actually very helpful, just to have carbohydrates on their own in a meal, and then proteins on their own in a meal, and just separating them. So I started with food combining, because you have different digestive time periods for carbs to proteins. So I separated those. That was really helpful. Then I started thinking, okay, let's remove the gluten. So I did no bread for a very, very long time. That helped. Then I eliminated dairy. That helped with my asthma. So I stopped having mucus. I stopped mouth breathing. I stopped having any kind of asthma symptoms.
Wow.
So I'd kind of gone through like bit by bit by bit. I was paleo for the longest time. That was one of the best things. And then obviously I thought, I was reading Weston A. Price, and so I was looking at the traditional cultures diet, which is the New Zealanders had the best diet of all of them and the best health. So what were the native New Zealanders eating? Lots of different protein sources, so fish, seafood, meat, etc., all sorts of different things, eggs, organ meats, but a significant variety of different fruits and vegetables, which is supported by the research we have now. So a very varied diet gives you a very varied gut biome, there is a correlation to health there, for example. So that's what my aim was. And I was having loads of different things, fish, eggs, all sorts. And I just didn't feel different through my periods. And I still couldn't lose weight easily, and I still felt inflamed. It was better, but I just didn't feel well in the same way that other people were expressing health. When I did my palate expansion, I was also doing a bodybuilding program. And at the point at which it was getting to kind of the peak of it, where I was on very low calories, and it was again paleo, so it was proteins and veg, minimal or no sugars whatsoever, so very low GI carbs. At that point, my body was in extremely high stress. So palate expansion is stressful on the body because you're creating so much change, and all the glands sit above the palate, so you've got the HPA axis, so you're going to have high stress at different points, and especially if you're pushing your body in the way that I was, minimum 4 workouts a week with weights, and I was doing 25,000 steps a day, on minimal calories and palate expansion. They're not compatible. So whenever anyone's doing palate expansion, I'm like, that's it. Don't overdo it. Just do everything else gentle. So I got a thyroid problem, and at that point, I was exhausted, I was fatigued, I was getting eye pain, my hair was falling out. I mean, it was extreme. And I immediately quit the bodybuilding program and just started building myself back up again. So lots of like good fats, salmon, sweet potato, all of that. And it took a long time to even get it stable. I was thinking, well, how do I fix myself now? And I knew I could get back there because I wasn't there already. It's just that I'd obviously, blown a light bulb really in the kind of stress response, and had reached a kind of new threshold. So the first thing I did was do some testing. All my tests came back normal. I knew I had a problem, but if the tests are showing normal, then what can you really do? You're not going to get medication. Exactly. Normal ranges.
Normal.
Which for me were not optimal. So clearly I wasn't okay. And I started working with a naturopath, and she immediately suggested to start having more broccoli and broccoli sprouts. So the DIM in there helps to excrete more of the estrogens. So it's obviously an estrogen dominance issue. And also suggested that I take a desiccated thyroid, pork desiccated thyroid. So for me, immediately I'm like, well, of course, the correction is in the animal. You're already having the thyroid, literally. So that was supporting me with T3 and T4. That got me better. I wasn't fixed. We kept trying to navigate all of the diet elements, and it just wasn't quite good enough to get me back. My hair was still falling out, still having those issues, still feeling fatigued. And if I didn't have the desiccated thyroid, I would literally, all those symptoms would return immediate day after, and I'd feel awful. So I was thinking, this isn't very good. So I thought, how do I fix this? And over time, it stabilized a bit more. And then COVID hit, and I started consuming plastic bottled water. So I was ordering water in plastic bottles. And I was doing my women's health course at the same time. And I was finishing off all of my palate expansion stuff as well. And what happened was I started getting bleeding between my periods. So I had grown a polyp. And when I got that looked at, we actually discovered it on my women's health course because we were doing all of the pelvic exams on each other. One of my colleagues discovered it. I was like, oh, that's probably why I'm getting bleeding between my periods. And at that point, they did a biopsy of the polyp, which was benign, and then they had a look at the uterine lining, did a biopsy there, and they found that I had disordered proliferative endometrium. So how the cells are basically dividing is abnormal, and that can lead to hyperplasia, and that can lead to cancer. And the doctor who I spoke to, my gynae on the NHS, she said this can move to cancer within a year, so I suggest you go on the progesterone coil. Now, for me as an osteopath, the last thing I wanted to do was start playing with my hormones, but I didn't want to ignore the advice I was given. I knew for a fact there was going to be a diet that fixed this. I didn't know what, and I didn't know how, but I thought, okay, let's buy some time. I'm gonna follow the advice given, even though it fundamentally didn't sit right with me. But I'm not stupid, so and so I had the progesterone coil, and immediately started to look into my diet, and then something else happened So one of my baby patients came in and made me very, very unwell with a respiratory infection. And I had 2 lots of antibiotics to fix that. That ruined my gut biome. And so I had this longer term thyroid issue, which I was kind of like keeping at bay. I'd corrected the polyp, but was having to balance my hormones with the progesterone coil. And then I had imbalanced gut bacteria and chronic candidiasis, so thrush as a result. And I'm like, I need to fix these. So I decided to start with a gut reboot and looked into the GAPS diet, the Gut and Psychology Syndrome diet by Campbell McBride, Dr. Campbell McBride, which basically is meat broth. You start off with meat broth, and then you go into bone broth, and you slowly reintroduce vegetables into your meat bone diet. And every time I introduced vegetables, I'd get worse again. So I'd feel good, and then I'd feel shit. I could feel better.
And the change was instant. Like the feeling of it was...
because I would start to introduce carrots and a few other things that I enjoyed. What do I like? Carrots, and I think it was parsnips because it was like root veg. And I just wouldn't feel good. I'd get lethargic again. I'd feel exhausted. And I thought, no, I'm going to just cut these out. So I immediately just researched carnivore. And whose book did I get? What's his name? Paul Saladino. I got his book, Carnivore Code. And first couple of pages, I don't think I really got past sort of the first third of the book, actually. And the first couple of pages, it was like, yeah, maybe plants aren't that good for you. And I was like, well, there you go. And, you know, maybe we're just not looking at... And I just needed someone to reassure me that I was doing the right thing by not eating them. And I was thinking, because that just fits with everything that I'm doing. So I decided to cut them out and found... and actually, I started with changing the high toxin plant foods to the low toxin plant foods. So you've got sweet and non-sweet fruits. Fruits are there designed by the plant for you to eat them. Obviously, there are toxic fruits, as I know, and all. Funnily enough, he has a list of high toxin, medium toxin, low toxin plant foods. Everything I was eating was on the high toxin plant food list,
such as
tomatoes. So everything in the nightshade family. So tomatoes, bell peppers, aubergines, chilies, goji berries, all the things you think are really good for you. All the brassicas, cauliflower, broccoli, which I was having tons of at this point in time. I was having broccoli every day, Brussels sprouts every day, onions, alliums, garlic, all the things I was growing, you know, all the things to taste good.
Yeah.
So I switched to butternut squash and all squash, which are non-sweet plant fruits, courgette. And I did that for about 3 weeks and immediately started feeling better. Olives, which are a fruit, olive oil, coconut oil. So I just shifted. And then I was researching more and contacted quite a lot of the carnivore doctors, like via Instagram. And there's a fantastic surgeon, neurosurgeon, called Dr. Anthony Chaffee. I think I'm saying his name right. And he's based in the US. And he was supporting me via Instagram, saying, you'll actually feel better. The last 5% of foods that you remove, you'll actually feel the difference. And I did loads of research on it. I followed loads of different doctors. I wasn't going to take a layperson's word for it. So I did as much research as I possibly could. And I looked into ancestral diets and all sorts. And after 3 months of going strict carnivore, my periods were very good after going on the coil for about 2 or 3 months. And then I started bleeding between my periods on the coil. And what I figured out is I'm still producing progesterone, and now I've produced a lot more progesterone, and now I've balanced my hormones. So I removed the coil, and my periods had never been so good ever in my life prior to that point. And that's where I am now.
It is amazing. It really, really is amazing. And like, I so see the science and behind the carnivore diet, but I also see the science behind the plant-based diet. It's hard because I sit as a plant-based person, not fully plant-based, but like I'd say I was vegan. I now have eggs, and that's been the best thing I've introduced. Greek yogurt, as I mentioned to you. I do have fish occasionally, where depending, for me, source and where it's from is huge. Meat I don't have, but I won't say never. I have bone broth.
Yeah.
I'm on the journey. Everyone, and I think that's the thing, everyone's on the journey to find what works for them.
Exactly.
But I do see all the science behind it, and I do think it is amazing. One thing that we spoke about earlier as well is like being too restrictive. So obviously you were restrictive to start with, like, well, not restrictive, strict, to get yourself back to your normal and your good and well-being, wellness for you. And then now you were saying, you know, if I want a chip, I have a chip.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice place to be. There are some people who I think the diet comes before life, and I get that, but there has to be some sort of balance. For example, as well, mouth taping. You say, I don't mouth tape every night. Neither. But what I probably mouth tape 3 or 4 times a week. And I get the best night's sleep of my life when I have that. But it's not realistic to do it all the time, because sometimes you don't need to do it, or you don't want to do it, and that's fine. So where does your balance come in now? Because obviously you were really strict and now you're not as strict. Where's that balance come back in?
When I started taking the thyroid supplement, for example, that really scared me. I don't like being dependent on anything or reliant on anything. So what if I couldn't order it? What if I couldn't get it? All of a sudden my symptoms would return. So it was very precarious, I felt. So for the longest time growing up, you know, for example, at school, like I'd bloat when I'd have gluten, and, you know, that was all part of like bullying and all sorts of other things. For me, nothing feels or tastes as good as being healthy. So
I agree.
Immediately, if I eat something, I feel really uncomfortable, like physically uncomfortable. And I've even had it when I was out with my friends years ago, and they'd all, like, for example, order pizza, and I used to not want to partake, but it felt like a lot of peer pressure, and I'm like, well, I'm not really, and at that point I hadn't really kind of got a label because I'm intolerant, not really allergic. So is it like bad enough to sort of qualify, as it were? And I said, look, I'm going to look really bloated. And I had a beautiful dress on. It was very tight. And I'm like, I'm going to look really bloated, like very, very shortly after, it's like within 20 minutes. And they're like, oh, it's fine, whatever. And because obviously nobody else cares. And then literally within 20 minutes, I look 5 months pregnant. And they're like, wow, how are you? And I'm like, no, I'm really uncomfortable. Like, I shouldn't have eaten that. And so growing up, I never knew what foods were safe to eat, because everything made me react, because obviously gluten is in everything, and I didn't know what I was intolerant to. I didn't know it was the plant foods as well. You know, everybody demonizes meat, or has done for a long time, so I thought maybe that was the problem. I mean, it went on and on. It was very hard to figure it out. And going carnivore is not really, it's not your first choice. You know, it's something you do by elimination and kind of desperation, really. You know, you tried everything else. Everyone else is saying, you know, vegetables are really good for you, and you're going against the flow. Yeah. And even as a medical practitioner as well, and you read the research, you know, and I've done the, you know, go through the functional medicine protocol of, you know, remove, repair, you know, re-inoculate, replace. You're looking through, you know, 5R functional medicine protocol. You're looking through the things, and you're trying everything, and nothing really works. So, yes, everything in moderation, which I don't actually subscribe to, but I understand the concept behind it. I would rather have my diet strict carnivore. It works for me 99% of the time. And then if I'm out with friends, I can go off plan, but I won't go off plan at home.
Yeah.
And it's, to be honest, I'm happier being strict with myself, because I know then everything else is plain sailing. You know, I don't then have mood swings. I don't then have a really low mood. My periods aren't all over the place. I'm able to really understand what my body is doing, I'm more consistent with my energy. I don't get headaches. It's all of that. Mouth breathing, because I'm not congested through my nose as soon as I have dairy or something off plan.
Yeah, it's like, as we said, if you haven't got that in the bank, you can't function properly.
It's massive.
And like food and breath and sleep are like the three pillars of life. Like there's so much wacky wellness now in the world, which is great, but like those three are like fundamental parts.
Because your gut is basically where everything starts. If you've got any irritation in the gut, it creates mucus. So that's the Molt-Golt system, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So you'll start to produce mucus. Then it will start to affect your respiratory tree. So you start to get mucus through that system. Then you mouth breathe because you can't breathe through your nose. You see this in infants and children all the time. And you start to, you adapt the diet, they no longer have that reaction and they're able to nasal breathe. But, what are the additional things causing that? So if I have dairy, I immediately get green snot and I can't breathe through my nose. So I just don't touch it. And gluten, it's more stealth. So it will undermine the gut lining, then create more reactions. So because I have a sensitive thyroid, not that I have a thyroid problem anymore, all of that's been fixed. And I started taking a mineral supplement, the fulvic elixir, and immediately, like within 3 days, my hair stopped falling out, my energy levels returned, and I realized how basically I was burning through my minerals because of the high stress state I was under. And we're always thinking about vitamins, but very rarely do we think about the minerals we're consuming. And the minerals are also in the different organs and like Celtic oysters and things like that, which is a supplement I take from Ape Nutrition. But and bone broth as well, there's a minerals there. But and even working with naturopaths and nutritionists, they weren't focusing on those things for me. It's still make sure you've got the variety in your diet. Now maybe with the plant foods, it is more because plants have toxins. This is the thing. And so is it that I'm able not to detoxify well enough? And these are the organic ones that I was growing myself. So, and eating seasonally. I was so strict on myself because I was like, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to do this how our ancestors did it. If those plants don't grow in this season in the UK, I'm not eating them. So whatever was growing in my allotment, I was mirroring in the supermarket. But I mean, ultimately, yes, we want the flexibility to do things, but I feel more mentally and emotionally stable when I'm happy with my food. And I had developed an eating disorder when I was younger because I didn't know what foods were safe. So for me, it's the other way around. I know that I understand the concept of, if you're really obsessive about your food, then you become overly controlled with it, and that can become a problem. I already had the problem from being unwell and not knowing what to have. This for me is I feel so safe with food. I know exactly what I can have. And if I have a meal now which is completely off plan, if I went and had like pasta, I know that I could get back on track within a day.
It's freeing.
It really is.
Yeah, I think it's so true. I think it's because sometimes with all this, it's like so much knowledge, but it's like, I don't know what works for me. But I think you just got to tune in. Like you said, what colour is your snot? Have you got stool? Look, like your body's telling you. Just
Does
look.
it smell? Do you have wind? I mean, I don't burp. I don't fart. That's gone. On carnivore, I have none. And I used to have a lot of wind. I mean, that's really quite remarkable.
That's amazing.
There's no odour to my stool.
That's amazing.
It's just nuts.
That is amazing.
And I go more than I ever have before. It's super easy to go, whereas I always had like constipation issues and discomfort. The thing with the vegan diet for me is, and vegetarian, is that the vegan diet is a deficiency diet by definition. You need to supplement with other things.
Yes.
Often that isn't well done with people. The other concern I have with it is that every protein source you have with plants, you have carbohydrates too. So you don't get an isolated protein source. So metabolic disorders can be very present if there's too much carbohydrate in the diet. So you have to be quite meticulous. Yes, you can supplement with certain things. They're never as good as the food source. And on top of that, when I'm looking, for example, at eating seasonally, you're eating a lot of things out of season in a plant-based diet in order to get variety.
Yeah, completely.
So there's for me, there's downsides. It doesn't. Our ancestors as well prized animal protein, all of them. So there is, I mean, I do think you need animal protein in the diet. I don't think you can have the healthiest diet without some. But then it is about the individual. What can one individual tolerate versus another? We all have the same requirements. We all need proteins and fats. Carbohydrates are not essential for life, but they are good in addition. However, there should be something we all can tolerate well. There's no way I could thrive on a vegan diet, and that's why for me, I know it's you have to have quite a flexible system in order to be able to have that as your diet.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And there should be one size that fits all, really. Most people. But this is it. So everybody says, we're all very different. I'm like, well, actually, we've all got the same fundamental needs.
Yeah.
Then it's about what we can tolerate. And maybe, we're not seeing an immediate reaction to those foods. I mean, I can't get past the first hurdle. My gut will bloat, I'll feel moody, and I'll literally I'll be in bed for days.
Yeah.
So immediately it floors me. Whereas with a different person, they might get other issues down the line. It might come out in another way.
It is so fascinating, and I honestly feel like we could talk about this like all day. You're so well versed in like how food impacts everything, and I think food is fuel. We all know that, but like it's so lovely speaking to someone who has tried it all, but also has seen it all. So you've got both. So I feel like we could honestly talk about this all day, but time is against us. So my final question to everyone is, what's in your handbag? Your handbag's over there, so if you don't mind getting it and sharing what's in your handbag.
I've got lots of makeup because obviously we're doing a podcast, and I was like, I can touch up. However, I haven't used any of it, and I'm probably not going to anyway. So I've got a comb, I've got sunglasses because it was a bit sunny today, but I don't really ever like wearing sunglasses. I put them on my head.
Nice.
I actually like I've got my wallet. I have a couple of, oh my God, I've got so much makeup in here. A couple of lip glosses.
What's your brand? Is that Say? I love their...
Really nice.
Love their stuff.
Lip oil, yeah.
Clean beauty as well.
And keys. I've actually tried this today. It's a plastic-free chewing gum.
Yeah.
But it sticks in your teeth.
Oh, so we don't love.
I tried it for the first time today. This is, it needs work. It doesn't hold together.
Work. Yeah.
Tastes nice though. I have teepees.
Yes.
For dental, and like I said, lots of makeup. Anything else just interesting? No. I mean, I always carry stuff for dental. I always have a toothbrush, and I also have my tallow lip balm.
Love that. Very nice.
From Fierce Nature.
Good brand. Lucy, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything. I know we've kind of focused, we could have spoken about so many things, but we've focused on airways, which I'm currently really passionate about, and diet, and I think the two go so well together. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to come on. It's my first podcast.
Yay!
So
I love that.
It's been so good sharing information, and I've got always so much to say on this. So it's great to be able to share it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Next week, we are in for another treat as we are joined by the two founders of We Are Regular. Jolie and Holly have just launched this brand, and it is a supplement that you take every day to help you go to the loo. They are on a mission to make us all have the most perfect poo. So if you want to join us talking about a lot of shit next week, then click that follow and subscribe button. It's going to be a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. You're going to love it. Do not miss the episode. So thank you guys so much again, and see you next week.